How does a 30 handicap drop to an 11 in 4 months without taking a single lesson? You stop fixing your swing and start fixing your decisions. That is the entire trick. 5 specific things I changed in 17 weeks took me from shooting 105 most weekends to shooting in the low 80s. Not one swing tip in the bunch. None of these tips will help you compress a Pro V1 the way a Tour Pro does. None of them will get you to break par. These are the strokes that hide inside the high handicap range, the ones you give back to the course without realizing it. 3 putts you should have lagged closer. Drivers you should have left in the bag. Approach shots aimed at sucker pins. The kind of decisions that quietly cost a guy in your shoes 4 or 5 strokes per round before he even swings a club. I shaved 19 strokes off my handicap in those 4 months, and my swing did not get 19 strokes worth of better. Maybe my swing got 4 strokes better. The other 15 came from thinking differently about the 18 holes I was about to play. I tracked every round on a free app called Arcos. The numbers told me exactly where the strokes were leaking, and then I plugged the holes one by one. Buried in tip 3, there is something my scratch golfer playing partner has been telling our Saturday group for 15 years that nobody listened to. I will get to that too. Stick around because the 5th tip is the one nobody talks about, and it is the reason I went from 3-putting 4 times a round to almost never doing it. There is a 10-step drill at the end that a guy at my home course taught me on the practice green. It takes 90 seconds before every round. It is the single biggest reason my scoring average held up once I dropped into the teens. Tip 1. Stop guessing your yardages. When I was a 30 handicap, I thought I carried my 7-iron 165 yards. Real number. Said it with confidence. Pulled the 7-iron on every approach inside 170. Came up short of the green roughly 70% of the time. Could not figure out why I was always pin high left or in the front bunker. The answer was sitting in my own ego the whole time. My actual 7-iron carry was 148 yards, 17 yards short of what I thought. That is the average for a guy who hits range balls off a mat and trusts what he sees from the launch monitor demo at the golf shop. Range balls travel 5 to 8 yards shorter than premium balls. Mat trajectories add another 2 or 3 yards because the club bounces clean instead of taking a divot. By the time you add ego on top, you are claiming numbers that exist nowhere except in your imagination. The fix is simple. Download a free GPS app on your phone. There are 6 of them, and they are all close enough that the differences do not matter. Swing U, Golf Shot, 18 Birdies, Hole 19, Garmin, or just the GPS built into your phone if your course gives you a yardage book with reference points. Anything that tells you the carry distance to a specific point on the green. Then play a real round and start logging. After every approach shot, write down the club you hit, the distance you had, and where the ball ended up. Did it finish pin high? Did it carry to the front and run up to the middle? Or did it come up 10 yards short and roll back to the front edge? Do this for 10 rounds. Do not change clubs. Do not change setups. Just write what happens. At the end of 10 rounds, you have your real carry yardages for every iron in the bag. Not what you wish they were, what they actually are. When I did this for my own bag, I learned that my pitching wedge carried 120, my 9-iron carried 132, my 7-iron carried 148, and my 5-iron carried 168. Then I subtracted 10 yards from each number, and that became my 80% number. The 80% number is the one I pull on the course. Not the maximum, not the dream. The number I can hit 8 times out of 10 under normal conditions. That single change took my greens in regulation from 3 per round to 7 per round in about 6 weeks. 4 extra greens a round saves 3 to 4 strokes minimum because you are now putting for birdie or par instead of chipping for double bogey. This is also where I have to admit something embarrassing. I bought a $400 laser rangefinder in month 2 of this journey because I was convinced I needed more precision. The rangefinder told me the exact same thing my free phone app had been telling me. 3 feet of variance over 150 yards. 3 feet. I could have spent that $400 on lessons or balls, or even better, on nothing at all. My phone was already giving me everything I needed. The rangefinder lived in my bag for 2 months, and then I sold it on Facebook Marketplace for $140. I am still mad about it. The first round where I really felt the new yardages paying off came about 3 weeks into the journey. Par 5 7th at my home course. 273 to the front of the green after my drive. Old me would have grabbed the 3-wood and tried to run it onto the green. Probably would have come up 20 yards short in the front bunker, because 3-wood off the deck is a coin flip for most amateurs in the 18 handicap range. New me checked the yardage book. Saw that 190 carried the front bunker with no trouble. Pulled my 4 hybrid, which I now knew carried 185 at 80% effort. Hit it on the front edge of the green. 2 putt for birdie, first par 5 birdie of my golfing life, and it did not come from a better swing. It came from knowing the number and respecting the number. Old me would have taken 5 strokes on that hole. New me took 4. That one club selection happens 5 or 6 times over a single round. 5 strokes a round leak out of the bag from guessing yardages. 5 strokes is the difference between a 90 and an 85. The reason I subtract 10 yards to get my 80% number is not because 80% is some magic ratio. It is because anything above 80% effort produces inconsistent contact for the average amateur, and inconsistent contact at maximum effort produces yardages that vary by 10 to 15 yards either direction, about the width of a small driveway. Swinging at 80% gives you a club selection that you can repeat. Swinging at full effort gives you a club selection that depends on whether your timing is perfect on that specific swing. Repeatable beats heroic, always. Quick note on when this does not apply. Inside 50 yards, you do not need GPS. You need feel. A wedge from 42 yards versus 47 yards is 1 swing length. You are not adjusting clubs for 5 yards inside the short game range. You are adjusting feel, and that comes from chipping practice, which is tip 3. GPS is a tool for full shots only. Once you are inside wedge range, put the phone away and trust your hands. Quick pause here. Everything I just walked through, and 100 more fixes like it, is sitting inside the Golfer's Bible, 2026 edition. 333 pages of the stuff that actually drops strokes off your scorecard. Every course-tested fix the old pros use to stop the slice, sink the putts, and break the ceiling you have been stuck under for years. And right now, if you grab it, I am throwing in the 30-day score drop roadmap completely free. That is a full second book that gives you 1 focus per day for 30 days, so you actually use what you just bought instead of letting it sit on the shelf. 2 complete books, 1 price. Link in the description, QR code on screen. This is the year you stop playing the same bad round every weekend. Alright, tip 2. Aim at the center of every green, every single one. I do not care where the pin is. I do not care if it is a Sunday final round at Augusta. The center of the green is your target. This is the tip that most weekend golfers refuse to believe until they actually try it. I know, because my Saturday foursome did not believe me. They thought I was being conservative. They thought I was leaving birdies on the table by not aiming at the flag. Until I shot a 78 at our home course with 13 greens in regulation and not 1 approach shot aimed at the pin. Then they shut up about it. The math is simple. Mark Brody at Columbia University spent years analyzing PGA Tour ShotLink data and published the strokes gained framework that changed how tour caddies make decisions. His finding for amateurs in the 18 handicap range is brutal. Aiming at tucked pins costs you on average 3.1 strokes per round, compared to aiming at the geometric center of every green. 3 strokes. From one decision you make 18 times per round. Here is why. A typical American green is about 30 yards deep and 25 yards wide, give or take, roughly the size of a small backyard tennis court. The pin sits somewhere inside that square. If the pin is tucked 5 yards from the back edge with a bunker behind it, and your normal dispersion at 150 out is plus or minus 12 yards in any direction, about the width of 2 large pickup trucks parked side by side, you are going to fly the green 40% of the time and land in that bunker. If you aim at the center of the green instead, you might leave yourself a 30-foot putt for birdie, but you will be putting from the middle of the green every single time. A 30-foot putt for birdie is a better outcome than a buried lie in a back bunker. Always, every single time. Tour caddies aim away from the flag roughly 70% of the time. Joe LaCava, who looped for Tiger Woods and Fred Couples, said in an interview a few years back that his job is not to help his player make birdie. His job is to keep his player from making double bogey. Center of the green is a par machine. Pin hunting is a double bogey machine. The simplest way to install this habit is to never look at the pin during your pre-shot routine. I am dead serious. When you walk up to your ball, you find the GPS number to the center of the green, You pick the club that carries that number under your 80% rule from tip 1, and you aim at the geometric middle of the green. The pin is decoration. It does not enter your decision. I will give you one exception. Inside 80 yards, with a clean lie and a wedge in your hand, go ahead and aim at the pin. The dispersion on a wedge from 60 yards is small enough that you can actually hit a specific number. From 60 yards, I can land the ball within 15 feet of the pin, maybe 60% of the time. From 150 yards, I can land it within 15 feet of the pin, maybe 12% of the time. The closer you are, the more aggressive you can get. Outside 100 yards, center of the green is the only correct answer. This single change took me from averaging 3.1 greens in regulation when I started, all the way up to 7.8 greens in regulation by the end of month 2. Almost 5 extra greens per round. Not from a better swing, from a better aim point. Tip 3. Flip your practice time upside down. When I was a 30 handicap, here is what my range sessions looked like. 45 minutes hitting driver, 10 minutes hitting irons, 5 minutes putting if I was bored, 0 minutes chipping. That is exactly backward from what works. The fastest way to drop a handicap from the high 20s down into the teens is the opposite ratio. Spend 70% of your practice time inside 100 yards, 20% on full swing irons, 10% on driver, almost no driving range driver work, almost all short game. The reason is math. The same Mark Brody strokes gained analysis I mentioned in tip 2 showed that for a 15 handicap, 65% of strokes are played from inside 100 yards. 65%, 2/3 of your golf round. And yet 90% of amateur practice happens on the full swing range hitting drivers and 7 irons. You are spending almost all your practice time on 1/3 of your game. This is the cheapest stroke drop available. It costs nothing. It does not require new equipment. It does not require a coach. It requires showing up at the practice green or the short game area with 20 golf balls and a sand wedge and a putter and putting in the work. The drill that worked best for me was the 1-ball clicker tube. You may have seen these. It is a plastic tube that holds about 20 balls. You walk over to the chipping green, drop the tube on the ground, and you can grab a ball, chip it, grab another ball, chip it. No bending down between every shot. I would do this for 30 minutes after my workday. 200 chips in 30 minutes. 6 days a week. By month 2, I was getting up and down from inside 50 yards, roughly 38% of the time. The average 18 handicap gets up and down from 50 yards, about 12% of the time. I had tripled my scrambling rate in 8 weeks of doing nothing except chipping for 30 minutes a day. Same applies to putting. Spend your practice time on putts inside 10 feet and on lag putts from 40 feet. Those are the only 2 distances that matter for scoring. Putts outside 30 feet are almost never made by anyone. Putts inside 3 feet are almost always made by anyone. The strokes hide in the in-between, especially in the 4 to 8 foot range. That is where you make or break your scorecard. A guy in my Saturday group, Scratch Golfer, watched my practice routine one morning and said it was the most obvious thing he had ever seen a high handicapper get right. Then he laughed at me, because he said he had been telling our other playing partners the same thing for 15 years, and none of them listened. They still spend an hour on the range hitting driver every Saturday before our round. They still shoot 93, he shoots 72. The information is free. Acting on it is the rare part. One word of caution. If you slice your driver into the woods every other tee shot, fix that first. You cannot ignore a driver problem if it is creating 2 penalty strokes per round. But the moment your driver is at least findable, even if it is not pretty, your practice priority should shift to short game. Findable beats pretty when it comes to your driver. Pretty does not score. Findable does. Look, I am going to be straight with you. Everything I am walking through in this video is just a small piece of what is inside The Golfer's Bible, 2026 edition. 333 pages. 101 course-tested fixes to stop the slice, sink the putts, and finally break the ceiling you have been stuck under. And right now, you also get the 30-day score drop roadmap free with it. A whole second book that lays out 1 focus per day for 30 days, instead of letting you guess what to work on. 2 books, 1 price, and I do not know how long I am leaving that free bonus in the deal. But if you have been watching these videos and thinking this could finally be the year you actually drop strokes for good, that is the move. Link in the description below, QR code on screen. Make this the year you stop playing the same bad round every weekend. Tip 4. Stop practicing with range balls and play with the same ball every single round. This one sounds stupid. I know it does. Hear me out. When you hit range balls at the local driving range, those balls are limited flight balls. They are designed to fly 15 to 20% shorter than a premium ball. Some ranges use balls that fly 30% shorter, just so the guys at the back of the range do not hit the fence. You cannot calibrate your yardages from tip 1 if your practice balls are flying 20% shorter than the ball you actually use on the course. Everything you learned at the range is a lie. The fix is 2 parts. Part 1. When you go to the range, bring your own bag of premium balls and hit those. I know not every range allows it, but most do, especially in the early morning or evening when the place is quiet. Even 100 premium balls hit at the range over a few sessions gives you real data on what each club actually carries. Part 2. Pick one ball model and use it every single round for 4 months. Do not mix balls between rounds. Do not pick up the random ball you find in the woods on the 3rd hole and play it for the rest of the round. Same ball every time. Same feel, same spin, same flight off every club. The ball I recommend is the Kirkland Signature 3-piece from Costco. They are about $13 for a dozen. That works out to $1.08 per ball, about what you pay for a candy bar at the gas station. Independent testing from MyGolfSpy showed the Kirkland 3-piece performs within 2 yards of a Titleist Pro V1, on driver carry, within 300 RPM on iron spin, and within 4 feet of stopping distance on wedge shots. The Pro V1 costs $55 a dozen. The Kirkland costs $13. You are paying $42 more per dozen for performance differences your handicap cannot detect. If you do not have a Costco membership, the Vice Pro or the Snell MTB are next best, both in the $20 to $25 per dozen range. Both perform within tour ball spec. My wife asked me once why a high handicapper would play a $55 ball. I said something about feel and spin. She asked me how I would notice the spin if the ball was buried in the woods on the 2nd hole. I did not have a good answer. That conversation ended with me buying Kirkland balls for the next 3 years. I have not noticed a difference in my scoring. My wife has noticed a difference in our credit card statement. A quick limitation. The Kirkland is great for everything except the very firmest greens, where the slightly lower spin shows up on long iron approach shots. If you play a course with stimp 12 greens regularly, the kind that roll fast like a polished hardwood floor, you might want to step up to the Pro V1 or the Chrome Soft. Most weekend golfers play courses with stimp 9 to 10 greens. The Kirkland is more than enough ball for those conditions. Save the $42 per dozen and put it toward green fees instead. Tip 5. The fastest stroke killer in amateur golf is the 3-putt. And the cure has nothing to do with your stroke. It has everything to do with speed. 90% of 3-putts in the 18 handicap range happen because the first putt left the second putt outside of 6 feet. The first putt was either 6 feet short or 6 feet long. Almost never offline. Speed is the killer. Line is the side dish. And yet every amateur I know spends his putting practice time working on line, standing over a flat 3-foot putt, and pushing balls into the hole one after another. That is not putting practice. That is muscle memory for a distance you barely ever have on the course. So here is the drill that changed my putting forever. I call it the 10-step drill. A teaching pro at the practice green at Bethpage Black showed it to me years ago, and I have done it before every single round since. It takes 90 seconds. It saves me 2 to 3 strokes per round. You walk to the practice green. You find a hole on a relatively flat section. You start at the hole and walk away from it counting your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 steps. That is roughly 30 feet for an average male stride, about the length of a bowling lane minus the approach area. You drop 10 balls at the 10-step mark, and you putt every single one of them with one goal. Leave the ball within 3 feet of the hole, either side. Past the hole or short of the hole does not matter. Within 3 feet. 3 feet is a tap-in for almost anyone, the kind of putt you can knock in left-handed with your eyes closed. Now count. How many of the 10 finished inside 3 feet? If you got 6 or more, you have good lag speed. If you got 4 or 5, you have average lag speed. If you got 3 or fewer, your lag speed is why you 3-putt 4 times around. That is fixable in about 3 weeks of doing this drill before every round. I will admit something here. I did this drill for 2 weeks and I thought it was not working. I would do it before the round and then on the first par 5, I would still 3-putt from 40 feet. Because I left the first putt 12 feet short. Same old habit, same old result. Then a guy in my group said something simple. He said the drill works at the practice green, but the greens you 3-putted on were probably running 2 feet faster than the practice green. Different speed, different stroke, different result. He was right. From then on I started rolling 4 or 5 balls on the first green of every round just to calibrate the speed for that day. Not warm-up balls, calibration balls. 3 rolled at 20 feet, 2 rolled at 40 feet. Watching how far each one ran. That 5-minute warm-up on the first green, plus the 10-step drill on the practice green, combined to almost eliminate my 3-putting. My 3-putt rate went from 3.7 per round when I started, which is high even for a 30 handicap, down to 0.8 per round by the end of month 4. That is roughly a 3-stroke per round drop from one drill done once before every round. The drill itself takes 90 seconds. The cumulative impact across a 4-month stretch was almost 13 strokes off my handicap. From one drill, 90 seconds, no coach, no equipment, just paying attention to speed instead of line. The reason this works is something the Stockton Putting Institute calls the speed window. Every long putt has a window of acceptable speeds that produces an acceptable outcome, and that window gets smaller the further you are from the hole. The amateur who tries to make every long putt is fighting the wrong battle. The one who tries to leave every long putt inside 3 feet is playing the right game. Here is the one more thing, the bonus. The 10-step drill builds lag speed, but the 4-foot range is where you actually make or break your scorecard once you get into the teens. Inside 4 feet, you should be making 90% of putts minimum. The drill that fixed my short putts came from a putting coach in Florida who works with a couple of Korn Ferry Tour players. He calls it the one-hand drill. You take your putter to the practice green, and you find a flat 4-foot putt with no break. You hit 10 putts using only your dominant hand. Just your right hand if you are right-handed. The other hand stays at your side. Sounds impossible. Try it. The first 3 or 4 will look ugly. By the 7th or 8th you start to feel something change. You feel the putter face stay square through impact, because there is no second hand fighting the stroke. Your stroke gets longer and smoother. The club head releases instead of being steered. Now switch. 10 putts with your non-dominant hand only. Even uglier. But the same thing happens. Both hands learn what a free stroke feels like when they are not fighting each other. Now go back to your regular grip and putt 10 more. Every single putt feels longer and smoother. The face stays square. The ball rolls true. The hole gets bigger. I started doing this drill once a week. 60 putts total. Took maybe 10 minutes. My putts made per round inside 10 feet went from 62% up to 79% over a 6-week stretch. 17% improvement on the most makeable putts on the course. That is the part of your game that has the most room to grow. The 4 to 8 foot range is where amateurs lose 4 or 5 strokes a round to better players. Tour players make about 90% from that range. Amateurs make about 60%. The gap is grip pressure and face control, not eyesight or talent. The one-hand drill installs both. That is the entire system. Real yardages. Center of the green. Short game practice. Same ball every round. Lag drill before every round. Plus the one-hand drill once a week. Nothing on that list cost me more than $15 a dozen. Nothing required a lesson. Nothing required a swing change. Pick the one that hurts your scorecard the most right now and work on it for 2 weeks. Then, add another. By month 4, you will not recognize your scorecard. I did not recognize mine. Go play.